Awesome. It's so great to see you again, Bob. It's been been a little bit of time since we've talked. You got a chance to go see some things, I understand. So
Yes,
why
I'll
don't you
tell you about it.
go ahead and start? Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah, sure. Walter, actually, Lacey and I just got back from 3 weeks in South America and Antarctica. Um,
Ooh.
so it was a kind of a trip of a lifetime. We've been planning it for a while, but actually spent a week in Buenos Aires, which was fabulous, and then we boarded a cruise ship, a Celebrity Equinox, and it made a number of stops in Argentina, Uruguay, Falkland Islands, went through the straits there in Chile, and then on to Antarctica for 2 days.
You didn't stop in
And
Peru though?
we did not.
Ah,
I will absolutely do it. Uh,
have you
this
been
was
to Machu Picchu before?
we have not.
Oh, well, I guess it's destiny that I'll have to take you to Machu Picchu at some
Well,
point.
and I will actually, Lacey and I we were talking about that with somebody else actually, and they said, "Hey, it would be great for us to go to Peru." And I said, "Well, I think I already have somebody who's going to be a local taking me to Peru, so uh,
Oh,
definitely that would be fabulous." So,
but
but
you can.
the Antarctica, how pristine it is. It's like nowhere else on Earth. I mean, it's devoid of all green. There's no trees. There's no nothing. It's just rock, ice, glaciers, the icebergs, and this blue ocean. Everything is just all around you. And there's penguins and there's whales and there's wildlife. All around you. And luckily, we had a naturalist on board, and she was kind of narrating the whole of all of the experience, including multiple lectures before to kind of prepare us for the actual experience.
Oh,
But yeah, that was 3 weeks. We just got back a little over a week ago, so still kind of getting back into the flow of things.
yeah,
But
it's nice to know that other places exist, right? Antarctica exists, and it's like the world continues on despite everything that's happening here.
Well, and also, Buenos Aires exists, so it's a
Yeah.
perfectly wonderful city. We had such a good time there. In fact, went to it. Got we played tourist for a week, so got to a tango show, and then toured the cemetery there, which is insane. And just had a very nice time there, and same thing with Montevideo. We spent a day there. That was great. So anyway, you kind of you see how everybody else lives, and then have opportunity to speak to so many different people, both locals and then all the folks that are coming in as tourists, and then obviously on the ship uh, as guests on the ship, along with us, so coming from all over the world for that experience, and so it's they're worried about us is the bottom
Yeah.
line. Many of the
What
conversations, they know more about us than we know about us. Number one, very aware of what's going on in the United States, and then they are very concerned about what's going on here, what's going on with our government, and just generally concerned for us as Americans.
I'm very actually pleased to hear that they're concerned instead of hateful, and
No,
I've always found that too. When I went abroad, people, they adopted me. It's almost like places or other parts in the world. I mean, it saved my life going to Peru and just getting out of the kind of toxic, because the United States, a lot of our culture, I would venture to say all of our culture is very toxic. And it's just like you go around like the interpersonal relationships in Peru, and they adopted me like a long lost son there, and I was able to kind of rebuild myself, my expectations for the world, and just that hope. And turns into what I said, like the progressive promise. How do we awaken? And we wanted to talk a little bit about messaging and a lot of other different things. How we get other people to just kind of come on board to this idea of the progressive promise. And a big part of it is traveling. I mean, that actually breaks it down quickly. You go abroad, see how other people live. How can
Yeah,
they
and
be fair?
they all have the, their issues with their governments, and they have their issues. But it just has a very very different feel
Yeah.
than the some of the issues here, and there's protests there, and I mean there's all this, but it's just I don't know. I just and I might be looking through rose colored glasses too, but I think that we have some fundamental issues that
Yeah.
differentiate us from a lot of other cultures.
Well, and just that the bully on the street corner mentality of the United States with this absurd amount that we waste every year on the military. And of course, I mean, I'm sure you have thoughts. We've seen this regime fire all of our best and most capable people. They're all fired. So and then, we're seeing, they've had midair collisions, they're having boats crash into each other. If you fire all the best people because you're committed to a white supremacy ideology instead of an ideology of achievement, even $1 trillion spent on the military makes you look incompetent. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on on
Oh, I
all that?
agree, and I'm a scientist and engineer by both education and who I am as a human being, and so seeing them, take this anti intellectualism, anti science, anti reason kind of approach to everything, and everything is about it's my way or the highway. You agree with me, or you're gone, and no ability to actually believe in data and facts, evidence, any of that. Yeah, obviously, every day I wake up, it certainly bothers the hell out of me. And I write enough, I think on Substack, at least that anybody who follows me will know where I stand. I mean, I'm not shy about saying where I stand. But I think it really is a shame that the degree to which this administration has now gone to purge all of those individuals who not even just disagree with them, but all can question anything based on
Mm.
their scientific approach or any of their the kind of free thinking, the questioning, the curiosity, any of that is being kind of sidelined or worse, completely purged from the government.
I think, and what you're saying, it's tying into the previous conversation we just had, which is on my mind. And it's important to note that this administration or this regime, it's terrible, but it's also built on a foundation that's pretty terrible of science denial and just anti-intellectualism. And so more and more my approach seems to be don't even go after the regime. Let's go after the foundation it's built on. The regime will topple that way too. But I guess we were talking in the previous conversation about how rote indoctrination is wielded by the right. They don't claim they're using it. They'll even actually, again, with them, every accusation is a confession. They sit there and say that the left uses indoctrination when we are emphasizing critical thinking. Meanwhile, the left then falls into this trap of being like defensive. And then they disregard the fact that literally everything the right does is rote indoctrination, from saying under God and the Pledge of Allegiance to all these other things that they do, taking books out of schools. They're literally the book burners, and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Go building on the conversation I was having before about rote versus reason.
Yeah, and I think that that's certainly there. And my approach typically is, when they just want to feed dogma, okay, or their lies or disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, instead of always kind of questioning it because you're get in a loop, okay, when you're trying to address lies, it's much better to just then say, well, these are the facts. Okay. This is the truth. Okay. I just went kind of, well, back and forth on Substack on a number of items, associated with what's going on in Iran, and they're still saying, well, they're going to have nuclear weapons in 3 weeks or a week or and there's nothing, absolutely nothing that is further from the truth. Number one, and we were on. Obviously, I was a guest on a program that we focused a whole hour on that. What, 6 months ago or so.
Yeah.
Um, but then also never mentioning the fact that who are the ones who have the nuclear weapons. Well, United States for sure, we know that. Okay, but Israel themselves have hundreds of nuclear weapons. They want to deny it. They don't want the International Atomic Energy Agency in to review their programs or anything else. So they already have an enormous deterrent against anyone approaching them. But all you see in the mainstream media or anywhere else, for that matter, is them repeating the fact that, oh yeah, they have enough fissile material to build whatever, 10 nuclear weapons. The Iranians, well, they're like years away, and the Obama agreement that was in place was preventing that. The international watchdog agencies were in there. They were reviewing their programs. They were making sure that they were abiding by the agreements.
Yeah.
There was no chance of the Iranians developing actual nuclear weapons. And it isn't just about having the material, which is what they're saying, 60% enriched material. You need 90 plus enriched material to actually get there. But then you have to actually take that and machine it into a weapon and then make it small enough that it can be transportable by a plane or a rocket
Yeah.
or whatever. And each one of those steps is an enormous engineering feat. It's just in my mind, it's getting in there and stating the facts and
Yeah.
trying to have people then say, "Okay, here are the facts. This is the
Yeah.
dogma. This is all the propaganda." Well, maybe we should actually question them. Well, I never see any of the mainstream media questioning them. Okay,
Yeah.
but there's at least enough of us out there who are trying to state facts and provide evidence and say something that hopefully approaches the truth.
Yeah. And Brandon mentions in the chat, he said, "Growing up in the church, we weren't supposed to question anything." And I think that's something we have to recognize, that the authoritarian concept where you just obey the authority figure, even and then you change, they have an expectation that we will change our perception of reality in deference to the authoritarian leader. And that's what this regime has been built on. But what the scary thing is, on a lot of different levels, is they're buying up all the media now. It feels like we have propaganda. I mean, it's been that way for a long time. It's worse now than it's ever been. And then just that concept of, you know, number one, distributing the message. And then the other thing is number two, like what the message should be in the first place. So I want kind of some of your ideas about that. Cause I mean, we were talking before because I'd interviewed Francesca Hong, and your feedback was really helpful. Where it's like, well, it started out kind of negative, and it's like a lot of these discussions I'm doing are just like, because I don't have time to plan anything anymore. I'm just trying to like get everything out. And but there's a big problem too. I mean, the negative side, I think it is important because so many Americans are just indifferent to the fact we got concentration camps and we got a
Yeah.
secret police that's murdering people in the street. And we don't know what's happening to these girls that are, I mean, there's these horror stories coming out. We don't know. Are girls getting raped in these concentration camps? Are there being, there's talk about incinerators, but it's like, I hear what you're saying too. It's like, because the general public feels asleep. But how do we take the message? It's like, here's what we have to convey: the reality of the danger we're facing. How do we do it? What's the order we do it? Is positive messaging where we're talking about a progressive possibility of a future? Is that a good form of activism? So let's just talk through it. I mean, I don't, I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah, and I think it is, and actually the conversation, uh, uh,
With
your
Fran.
show before this with Deidre and Will,
Yeah.
I think really started focusing on education. So I think that's a big
Yeah.
part of it. But just obviously I'm a progressive. I've been a progressive now for whatever 55, 60 years. So I turned 75 here in June this year. So born in 51, kind of grew up in the 50s and 60s, and actually raised by a kind of a bigot, racist, anti-Semite. Was also kind of raised in the Catholic Church. I went through all of the stages through confirmation in the Catholic Church. And so, I kind of understood dogma because my dad, he also was a John Bircher. So, he's given me these Phyllis Schlafly books to read and all of that stuff. And, by the time I'm probably, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, I'm rejecting kind of all of that. Because the one thing that I think went on in the 50s and early 60s, especially for the baby boomers. Again, I'm a baby boomer, kind of early kind of end of the baby boomer generation, born in 51. I think they actually started to in the schools tried to kind of build that whole concept of challenging dogma, critical thinking, kind of the embracing of the scientific method and evidence and facts and all of that. That was part of the education system in the 50s and 60s, especially. I grew up in
Yeah.
New York, so obviously that probably has a twist on it. But like I said, my mom was a kind of ardent Catholic all the way through until she died. She thought I was going to hell probably the day she died. And my father, yeah, I mean, he and I actually butted heads from the time I was a preteen or certainly a teenager. So I think that the big thing is, can you in fact kind of build the passion for curiosity, for uh, kind of uh,
Yeah.
kind of learning, for critical thinking. If
Yeah.
we can do that, then I think a lot of the progressive thinking just
Yeah.
comes along with it because it makes logical sense.
I think I can be useful here. And if you were watching my other interview, but I grew up in this conservative area, and it's just you just don't. I mean, there are not a lot of people like me who make it out of places like that. And the story I told in the last one is I just got this. It's like I'm not ready for college, and I have to get out of here. And so I got this list of the 100 greatest books ever written. I had no idea who compiled this, so
Yeah.
I was finding these books, and it became like my senior year was a quest to find because I couldn't find them at libraries. I had to go to other libraries to get these books, and I'd get in trouble for reading them because like the Communist Manifesto was on that list. So I was reading it, and I was getting yelled at in the school. But other books like Kant's Critique of Reason. I was reading that. I got in trouble for that. I'm just trying to force myself through these books, like not
I do
knowing,
that too. Yeah.
Well, it's just like I don't know what I'm doing, and it's just I think we need to recognize, like a little bit of help would have been so big. And I think these there's this tendency, we have these liberal cities, the elite liberal cities, and they're just mad at the rural areas. But there are people like me in these rural areas with just a little bit of help, it would have made, and there were so many that were just didn't make it out. That's another
Yeah.
thing. And I think we need to understand too. I want to pivot to, I was watching this documentary about evolution, and they presented it all as this is what this figured out how to eat. And then it's like how to not get eaten by this predator. And then the next step of evolution came. Oh, I'm going to have eyes so I can escape the predator. Oh, I'm going to fly. And it's ongoing like that with this white supremacy movement in the United States. Everything we try to do to implement reason is countered by another effort to implement. And I think we just forget. I think we think it's naturally occurring, and it's not. There is this shadow group, the Project 2025 there was lawyers who wrote that, and they're kind of out in the
Yes.
open, and we've trained ourselves not to look at them, but they spend all their time figuring out new ways to hurt our kids and to make them not curious. And they transform things. I've been saying, they call themselves Christian nationalists. The rest of the world calls them white supremacists. But then when they say there's a war on Christianity, because they know if they say there's a war on white supremacy, they don't get any sympathy. So they have to
Yeah.
say there's a war on Christian. And then they say it's always been a Christian nation when in fact it's always been a white supremacist nation. And so, I mean, for every time we come up, it's as important to come up with strategies to help kids be curious. As important to that is helping them to understand you're going to be confronted by these false actors who are going to try to undo that effort. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's right. And like I said, I kind of going back to what can we do? Okay. I think the biggest thing that we can do is try to get, um, the education system, especially the public education system, because we can't really, influence the private education system other than don't give them vouchers.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
don't fund them with public funds. Okay, so if in fact we can channel a lot more into public education as much as we can. I mean, look
yeah.
at how much we spend $2 trillion on the military and homeland security and the intelligence agencies and militarizing all of the police forces are around the United States. Take that
Yeah.
$2 trillion, even if we cut it in half,
Oh,
still
man.
$1 trillion going into that is horrible. But then we have $1 trillion to spend on education and healthcare, et cetera. If in fact we can really kind of build what is that? What are we trying to accomplish with education, and make sure that the curricula are all appropriate to kind of build those Americans
Yeah,
who are now going to kind of move the country forward.
yeah.
I think that's probably the one place to really put as many of our bets as we can, because I'm a product of that. It's a kid who grew up where they knew what the investment was, because even after I went through public school, uh, through high school, but then went to Hunter College in Manhattan. And at
Mhm.
that point in time, the New York City was investing in their kids. And so I had a free education, a college education. I got a bachelor's degree in physics and master's degree in physics. I didn't pay a dime for any of that. In fact,
Yeah,
I walked out with money because they had also given me teaching assistantships, and I was a tutor
oh,
for years, and research assistantships, etc. So, and even
yeah,
after that, got a master's degree at the University of Central Florida in engineering,
yeah.
and the Navy paid for that because I was a naval officer. And so the government invested in me, and
Yes,
then there was a substantial return on that investment in my 50+ year career.
yeah.
That I think we should really kind of pay attention to that, because the baby boomers actually benefited from that, and maybe we should be investing in the same way in
Yes.
our children and grandchildren.
Yeah, and that requires a complete recalibration of how we think about money at all because
Absolutely.
because you sit and think about it, and I've been thinking about that too, and well, one thing is, I've been up against the wall in my life, but I've had opportunities to screw people out of money, and I just didn't do it. So, that's
There you
kinda why
go.
you're up against so it's like, okay, I don't have my millions, but I also can sleep at night, and the other thing I'm saying is I'm not in the Epstein files, that's another thing I didn't do, and you get here today.
Nor I.
So but I mean, you get here to
And
this point in life.
you don't have any classified information sitting on your desk behind you, do you? Let's see.
Nope, nope. Yeah, it's all written right there on my whiteboard for the world to see.
Uh,
But, we're at this awakening point too, though, because all these people that have always looked down at me and told me it's like it wasn't good enough and my suffering is my fault. Turns out all those guys are on the Epstein files. And we've had to sit and listen to these lectures from these horrific people. But like, I mean, I didn't have that opportunity. Like the idea of paying to go to get an education, when it's like I had capability to learn things that most people don't have the capability to learn. And if you're denied that opportunity because you can't pay, it's like
yeah.
money is just something we print. It doesn't exist. It's a fake thing. The harder thing to find is people with, ability and initiative and motivation who are interested and curious, in complex ideas and who want to make a contribution. And the idea that we should deprive those people of that opportunity because they, can't work enough hours in a minimum wage job to pay for an education is a squandering of resources.
I totally agree, and actually, another little tidbit about myself. My dad and mom, neither of them graduated high school. My dad was a mechanic on the Long Island Railroad, and so I grew up certainly kind of relatively poor. We had a good life. As I didn't know anything else. But we didn't have that much.
Yeah.
But like I said, the whole society at that point was different. Now, there was all kinds of issues. Okay, obviously, the blatant racism and all of the issues associated with voting and women's rights, et cetera, et cetera. But think about the '60s. It was probably the most progressive time in American history, because they were in fact addressing all of those things in the '60s through legislation. So the Congress was, in fact, acting and acting responsibly for the most part. I mean, obviously, we had the Vietnam War, and all of those kinds of things. So I'm never, again, never kind of looking through rose-colored glasses, at life. There's always the blemishes, but certain periods of time, like the '60s and into the early '70s, there was an enormous amount of progress. Even with Nixon, who I hated. Okay, he in fact, put in place the EPA. You started addressing clean water, clean air, et cetera. And this is Nixon. I don't know. It just it
Yeah.
was I think there is that potential, but we do need to marshal the energy and marshal the resolve
Yeah.
to actually get our legislators to do something. Okay, they do
Yes.
nothing at this point, and it's just horrible.
Yeah, and we have to understand too, as much because we always focus on the progress, and I think that's one of our big mistakes. We focus on the areas of progress, and I keep saying we teach U.S. history like it's the Epstein files. We redact all the stuff we don't want the world to hear, and
Yeah.
we got to remove those redactions and understand. For every movement of progress, there's another movement, a shadow movement that's trying to pull us back, and there's always that battle going on. And I think we get into that habit of becoming complacent. And I think what we're seeing is over the last 40 years that the encroachments have gotten worse and worse. And our side has been subdued into thinking we shouldn't speak out. I'm finding it a lot when I go online. There's things that, you know, and I'm critical. I'm critical of Tallarico, for example, for having James Carville as one of his consultants, because in my opinion, James Carville is extremely racist. And so
Absolutely.
that all by itself, Carville should not be in discussion. So, but if I have that conversation with other people, they're like, well, no, you're the circular firing squad. It's because of you that Democrats can't win. And so then we get to, and that's an example which has caused all of us on other issues, all kinds of issues, to just be silent because we know we're going to see pushback both from people that should be our allies and people that are, our opponents, our open opponents. And I think just rousing people so they start fighting because the white supremacists, no battle is too small for them. There's no avenue of vulnerability that's that they haven't found. Like every single place that they can do to install their toxic mind virus into our minds, they've taken advantage of it. And now all they have to do is defend because that establishment is there. They just have to defend. And if they can't defend, they just have to delay. But we have to be roused and we have to take this more aggressive action. And I guess it's our ally. When the problem is we get into our allies start bickering because that circular firing squad start, they're trying to tell me to be quiet, undermining the fact that, being quiet is what got us here. So I guess somebody mentioned before we need positive messaging. The negative stuff is kind of a burden, but I mean, we also have to be truthful. So I don't know. What are your
Well, but I think we actually have kind of moved things forward, and we can't, I was a Jasmine Crockett supporter in Texas, even though I'm in Nevada. Obviously, we are supporting progressives wherever we can. Um, uh, but okay, fine. Okay, there's a loss. Okay. The question is, are we still moving things forward? And then you start to look back even 20 years ago and say, what was the status of the progressive movement? Could you in fact name, individuals who are kind of representatives in a house who in fact were espousing and embracing progressive values, and there weren't that many of them. Okay, well, there's almost 100 of them now as part of the Progressive Caucus. So if anyone on the line, is really kind of not seeing what we're trying to do, just spent a moment searching the Progressive Caucus and the Progressive Promise of the Progressive Caucus, and those are the values, the principles that we are trying to espouse and use as the basis for kind of moving legislation forward and leading the discussion forward.
Yeah.
And so there's almost 100 of them. I think I forget
Okay.
98 or 97 of them, but hopefully after this election, there's going to be a lot more. So even though there's the Carvilles out there, focusing on the Carvilles rather than telling everybody that you meet about the Progressive Caucus and the Progressive
Okay.
Promise and what we're trying to accomplish in the progressive movement.
Yeah.
I think is the key, and it's relatively simple. You can get the Progressive Promise. There's 4 items. There's multiple, sub elements of those items. But if you look at them, it's like hand that to a Democrat who's running and saying,
Yeah.
"Well, are you going to embrace this? Why don't you endorse this list of progressive values and
Yeah.
let's move this forward?" So even though they might be a centrist Democrat, if in fact they start to embrace those principles,
Yeah.
then the progressives who are already there, in fact, can start to take that leadership position and move those forward.
Yeah. I would like to talk because we've talked often to the right. Well, first of all this hate ideology, I think they steal a lot of money. All the money like that the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in what, 10 years, 8 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
forever.
I
Yeah,
mean, all this money, and every time the right talks about waste and fraud, it's because, every accusation is a confession from them. And this is why
yeah,
they have so much money to support people like Charlie Kirk and, all these different kind of people that go out there and Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan gets all this money to just spread ignorance, like $100 million contract. And I think we've underestimated the importance of just the messaging. And like I said, particularly in these rural areas like I live, everything on the radio, there's, 7 of 9 radio stations. It's just right wing hate indoctrination, constant, constant, constant. And so we need, I mean, if we can get members of the progressive caucus, because what I'm doing is basically unfunded. I get all the wonderful people that support me here. But I mean, we need an initiative to help support more people that are out on this message because I'm really an outlier. It's like I openly talk about progressive ideas, but we just need to get, on the radio and we need to get, I mean, it'd be nice if we had churches and we could do all these other things because the message has to get out there. And I'm doing everything I can. But it's like, I mean, yeah, if there's 100 politicians, if for some way they could figure out to finance me and more people like, doesn't have to
yeah.
be millions of dollars, just enough though so I can get my furnace repaired would be great.
Understand, understand. And I think just being able to kind of share because it's only 2 pages. I'll pull it out over here.
Oh yeah,
It's
please. Yeah.
it's only 2 pages of the Progressive Promise. So whenever anybody has a kind of discussion about, what do you stand for? Well, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, just read this. So what do you stand for? I just had somebody do that on Substack, and I was able to say, well, this is what I stand for. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, I was just gonna say, but how do we like making the message stick? And this is something over the last year, like I was just telling you, I'm just worn out. But what I found is like in 5 years prior to this, I was writing my articles, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna write a 1,500 word article and put it out there. It's not good enough, it's just not. And it's like you really do. I have to be on every single day and tell people again and again and again. Cause like the hate indoctrination and then like the status quo indoctrination is all there. So all that stuff we have to work against. I'm the messaging part of it is my focus. But it's like, and yeah, I mean, like talking points are great, but I have to present it. Oh, I'll present it like this. Oh, I'll present it like this. It's sort of like every imagination. Now let's make it a Western. Now let's put it in space. Now let's put it in Victorian era. It's like again and again and again and again and again. Because it's like, yeah, it's one thing is to have our objective, but getting through all that road indoctrination, it's going to take this huge effort. And again, we see whenever the Republicans get in charge, they have no qualms about just getting trillions of dollars and dumping it into hate groups. So those guys are funded up to their eyeballs. They get to live in mansions. And then just by virtue of the fact that they have their mansions, people are like, well, that guy must know what he's talking about. And
yeah,
meanwhile, our time get in charge and we don't make the equivalent effort. And we need to start doing something a little bit better.
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, my question is always, well, they've got all these billionaires. Well, where are our billionaires?
Oh,
There must be billionaires that
yeah,
actually have kind of a progressive leaning. Hopefully, the more I ask, the more I don't find them. So I'm not
yeah,
sure that they actually do exist. Because you probably
yeah,
can't become a billionaire and actually believe in progressive values. Because if you did, you probably would have given most of your money away before you
yes,
hit the billion mark. So I don't know. Maybe it is a self fulfilling prophecy of if the more money you make, the less and less and less you really care about other people,
yeah,
and therefore the less and less you really are going to embrace progressive values. So the grassroots is all we've got. So it I don't know. I mean, because there's really nothing in it for the rich to
yeah.
support those that are not.
Well, I was just like, one way is we could just once we get people in control, just unapologetically, like, all right, we're gonna raise the education budget to $1 trillion, even if they just do it for a year. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like just to get some money, because this is what I mean, it's important to just recognize the strategies of what the hate groups do. It's like they lose, lose, lose. The second they get in power, they steal as much money as possible for their hate indoctrination as they can. And that's how come all of our billionaires are out there. But then we haven't, and I don't know if this is an ideological thing because Americans are just so conditioned to like this centrist status quo that they just don't even think about that. But we got to
Yeah.
push back hard. And I mean, yeah, all it would take, like you think about Biden tried to forgive student loans. And the
Yes.
pushback about that on social media was just extreme. And they were able to, but then, then they do a bailout for farmers and he wanted to increase the military budget by $500 billion and they gave 170 billion to ICE and now we're at war again. And it's just like the constant money that's put that way. And then like any side of reason, I don't know. I guess that's why just how are we going to fund this and what out of the box strategies can we use to make this government work for us?
Well, and I think it's again, it's getting to a point where you have enough progressives so that even though they may not be the majority, like 100 of them is actually a pretty good number.
Yeah,
Think
it
about
is.
how many folks these are declared progressives. Okay, in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
So there's only 400 plus, members of the House of Representatives. So
Yeah.
you're talking about, somewhere between 20 and 25% of the House of Representatives, okay, are declared progressives. Um,
Yeah.
how many more of those do we need, okay, before now we've got all of them shouting, okay, to
Yeah.
get the programs in place? And then when these big, funding packages come up to fund $1 trillion for the DOD, they go, no, okay, no, I'm willing to shut down the government, if that's
Yeah.
the only alternative. And let's see if we can do it for
Yeah.
half $1 trillion,
Well,
which you could. Okay,
yep.
you don't need 11 or 12 battle groups out there of aircraft carriers and submarines and everything else
Yeah.
to in fact do what we need to do as a world power.
And what the complication there, though, and yeah, that's great. But here's the issue: is because now we're moving more and more towards this propaganda media where the oligarchs own the entire. Like, we got to break up all these. We got to break up every conglomerate. We got to bring
Yeah.
back the small newspapers, all that kind of stuff, because the way it exists, and maybe that's the point of approach that we have to talk to the progressives about. I mean, start filing those antitrust bills because
Yes.
the second the progressives stand up and say no no military budget, the media just destroys them. Then they lose their seat. They're blamed for
Yeah.
everything, and we see that just the unfair, like even with the Jasmine Crockett, she was not treated fairly by the media, and Harris wasn't treated fairly by the media. Democrats in general aren't treated fairly by the media. But I mean, part of that is, oh, Judith, hi Judith. I just saw what you said. But it's like, but part of that issue is we need that messaging base, and it's like and they dropped the ball. I don't know if we can appeal to more Democrats. My concern is so many of these, I've been calling them blue MAGA, the Democrats who are more interested in the status quo. I keep saying, like they say, we have to appeal to moderate Republicans. I say, if you want to appeal to moderate Republicans, run as a Republican.
Yes.
If you want to run as a Democrat, run as a Democrat. But we do just need to put more pressure. And part of that gets us back to what I've been doing. I'm just interviewing these candidates. And I'm finding there is a gigantic group among the Democrats will not talk to me. Like they would refuse. I mean, the bigger names, they would never talk to me. It's all these progressive challengers that are willing to have a reasonable conversation with me. And we just need more of a movement like that. Both me and all the other creators here, the more of the messaging that we can take control of, we have to combat that tidal wave of hate messaging that we're getting from the right. But yeah, a little bit more support, I mean, I don't know if it's just a matter of awakening the progressive caucus to this need for this. Like if they just think, because I think too often they think, well, this is just the way America is. And we can change how America is with messaging and education, which gets us back to what we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think there are some kind of grassroots elements, and you and I have chatted about this, and I'm continuing to try to get some of these folks to come on your program as well.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
there's, some kind of grassroots roots elements that in fact are kind of supporting progressive candidates and trying to message appropriately. One of which I kind of mention all the time, that the leaders we deserve, who's
Yes.
trying, so David Hogan and leaders we deserve, trying to
Yeah.
get younger people, younger progressives, okay, elected to office at all levels.
Yeah.
And then Emily's List, who's trying to do the same for women, and then Vote Vets, who's trying to get veterans, progressive veterans, elected to
Yeah.
office. These are all kind of grassroots, and so they are kind of PACs, but they're not big funded PACs.
Yeah.
They're, through corporate funding.
That's a great point.
And
Well,
so,
go ahead.
it's really kind of getting the progressives, who are now starting to get funded by those organizations,
Good.
especially the
Good.
ones who are younger, who are women, who are vets, etc. And then be able to get them kind of all kind of supporting you and the other individuals on Substack and the like, to kind of get that as a movement, where everyone's kind of leaning in the same direction.
Yeah. And I was going to say, because you said PAX as if apologetically, but it's like, and it's like everybody they divert to the "we can't be like them" argument, and I keep saying that's a flawed way of thinking. It's like we have to use it for our objective. That's the good thing, and it's like the tax code. You can write off. It's like I could wear somebody's hat, and that could be advertising for their business, and they could fund me that way, right? Then it's
Yeah.
a write off for them. We can get around these systems in different kind of ways, but just like yeah, that building, that construction, and using the corrupt mechanisms within our system in order to push forward our purpose for a progressive model, I think is something that we have to do. And yeah, more organization, more interacting with people so that we build each other up, especially the ones that we are sincere, because everything right now is still too fragmented. And we just need that cohesive unity a little bit more.
I agree. I agree, and I'm encouraged, okay, because actually, if you kind of look at the number of progressives that are starting to run, again, young people, women, so many different folks that are
Yeah.
from kind of marginalized, or oppressed, elements of our society are now running as progressives and getting support, and getting visibility. I think we are starting to get to that kind of turning point, where we may have been kind of fighting an uphill battle,
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 years ago. I think we're still fighting the battle, but now we're fighting a battle with a lot more in the way of resources,
Yeah.
that we did not have, just as little as again, probably 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And we have to rely on unselfish people too. That's the other thing that makes this kind of tricky because, and that's why the establishment, they want to buy up all the media because then they control the narrative, right? And so if we're trying to build a coalition, inherent to that is a surrendering of control of people who already have a certain amount of power. And I think that's kind of one of the things we're working against. And I think we see that with the Democrats. I feel that's why they don't want to come and talk to me. They don't want to validate, like the establishment Democrats. They don't want to validate these things that we're demanding, like working
Yeah.
class people who talk to candidates, because then that would kind of threaten their power and their ability to take in donations. Meanwhile, the progressives are willing to come on and talk to me, and they talk to me like real people. It's like, oh, I understand in this person, a person who has worked for a living. That's what we're seeing in the progressive group. But what scares me, and there's still this minimal visibility. And I've been saying it's like even like I was sending out that interview I did with Fran Hong. I was taking that interview and sending it out to all the local newspapers because a lot of people are like, I don't know anything about this candidate.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, newspaper, here's an interview you can show for free. I'm not asking it. Just this is who and they refuse to publish that because they want to deliberately suppress the information that's available to people.
Yeah.
And I think these aspects of the messaging are kind of off the radar still. And just the need for that, where it's at this point we have to choose. It's like you can have your status quo, or we can continue as a nation or as a race of creatures on this planet. And some
Yes.
people just have to make the change.
Well, and I think, what we've seen is, when the kind of the progressives do pop up, so
Like
Mitt
Mamdani.
Romney,
Yeah.
AOC, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett. I mean, there's a fairly long list now of
Yeah.
individuals who kind of pop up and get, a megaphone, and they use it, okay, to kind of tell the country, tell the world, what those
Yeah.
progressive values are. They get attention.
Yeah.
So I think the key is that we just need a lot more of them.
Yes.
We
Yes.
need thousands of them.
Well,
Because there's not, just like you get tired because you're out there just beating the
ugh,
drum every day.
like in a cattle prod. Oh, yeah, let's do it
Yeah,
again.
what we need is thousands of the Bernies
Yeah.
and AOCs and Mandavis out there kind of just, doing what they need to do in order for them to get attention. And then, freaking Trump invites, the Mondavi to the White House. And suddenly there's like, holy shit, this guy's got a progressive message. And look
Yeah.
at all what he's doing in New York City. And suddenly, there's at least attention in even the mainstream media just because of
Yes.
what they're able to do and to message and then accomplish.
Yes. And it's what the word I just wrote down was validation. And I think this is what people have to understand. And it's in that part of your mind that you're not consciously examining, because they indoctrinate us with so many assumptions we were talking about before that are just not true. And because you've assumed something your whole life, you mistake it for truth. It's flat out wrong.
Yeah,
And, and and just these conversations I've been having, like, with Nick Perro. Yesterday, we had a great one where we were talking about a lot of things, like this constructive criticism of the Democratic Party and just say, "Look, don't say I'm circular firing squad. Look back. They keep losing. We're offering this is what we need to do. We can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result." And so many people are just reluctant to even come close to that. And part of that is they're reluctant because it's constantly emphasized. If you read a question on social media, saying it's like maybe the Democrats should have called for one recount in 2024, you're going to get all these bot. I think a lot of them are bot comments,
yeah,
but other ones are people that would otherwise be reasonable, but they've just heard that status quo argument so often. And that's what we have to push back against. It's just empower people to give themselves permission to evaluate. Because it's like I was saying the other day in the movie The Matrix in
yeah.
1999, he says, "Haven't you always known that something isn't right?" And it's like it's invoked, right? So there's this level of awareness too. And this is one of my big hopes. And it's what Lincoln talked about. You can't fool all the people all the time. There's
Right.
something that percolates. The messaging sits there, and then one day that's a lie. It can be as much as that. And so this structure of oppression that's in place, it's like we said, it's every church contributes to it, all the conservative radio, all the money that they have. And then there's no count. The only thing that we really have that's counter messaging is public education, like you were saying before. And so that's constantly under attack too, where they're taking books out, they're
Yeah.
firing good teachers, they're limiting what teachers can say, you know? And so, yes, we have to emphasize that, but we have to do it also more on diversity in film, and just approaching these ideas and having these conversations, more access to these kind of podcasts and conversations. So people then they do feel validated. So they don't all, because this is how I grew up in my conservative area. I was all by myself and all I knew was what they're telling me isn't true. But it's like that pressure is crushing. And so we have to recognize people in those positions and give them support.
I totally agree. I want to take a minute or two. I'll take 5 minutes
Good.
to also tell you a very interesting thing that actually myself and Lacey Lowe, my partner, are working on, and it really has to do with artificial intelligence, with all of these bots,
Oh,
with kind of both Gen AI and especially agentic AI. So agentic AI, if the listeners don't know, is really AI, AI that's kind of focused on creating agents. And so, what you see is tons and tons of this thing, and all the talk is about how horrible it's going to be because it's going to take all the jobs, it's all that. And there's certainly all of those kind of concerns. But one of the things that we're working on is, how to draw humanity into the whole area of AI. And what we're doing is actually working on agentic AI to create digital twins. And I think I've mentioned this on a couple of past
mhm,
podcasts,
mhm.
but we now have done it. So both Felicia and I have digital twins that we have developed. Okay. And they are us. So if in fact you speak to our digital twin, the digital twin has experience, it has history, it knows where it grew up, it has values, it has guiding principles, it can explain those to you. And so, what happens when we effectively draw agency into the whole area of AI and marry it with that humanity, okay, so that you can have a conversation with somebody. I'm going to be gone soon, probably sooner than later.
I hope
Yeah, I'm hoping not. I'm hoping not. But at 75, I know I've got a lot of years in front and behind. So, but it's so. You guys know I kind of wrote
Oh,
a
yeah.
memoir a while ago, and there it is, My Curious
Yeah.
Life. So,
Good plug.
we uploaded that. We
Yeah.
uploaded, in fact, Walter, a lot of the transcripts of our conversations. We uploaded all of that.
Oh,
Okay, well,
I'm in there then.
I uploaded my, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I've been on a lot of podcasts and radio shows. Unfortunately, I had to get rid of you. Okay,
Ah,
because
you've
because
been
the
deleted from history.
yeah, okay, what happens is, yeah, I can only do it with uh, my way of thinking, my voice, the way that I answer. So if you put you up in there too, then it's going to get confused.
It's like adding chocolate chips into a cookie. You put
Yeah,
me in there.
exactly. Yeah, you need
Can't
a
have that.
cookie. My website, mycuriouslife.net. All of that, all of everything that I've written. So like it was like 500 or 600 pages of stuff. Okay, and then it was tuned to kind of be me, and then I actually it speaks as me. So it has my voice, and so you can actually have a conversation, voice to
Yeah.
voice. And so what we're thinking, okay, and this is kind of the future of learning. This is the future of the way that individuals will interact with technology, because it isn't just, oh, I'm going to have a better query and then get all this crap out of the, because
Yeah.
the bot Bob is who what we call me, okay, or Robo Lacey. It will in fact also screen based on our way of thinking, what's in the internet, because it has access to the full access of the internet. So this is kind of the coolest thing that's starting to go on right now. Is
Yeah.
how do you now start to think about the future of continuous learning, of curiosity, of having a conversation with technology that actually has humanity baked into it. I'm going to stop
Yes.
here, but I wanted
Oh, I got a lot to
it
say.
is a really really kind of cool thing that an old guy and an old woman is, and actually another guy that's been working. I'm going to say one other thing, because last week we actually did a panel discussion, live audience, live narrate moderator, and four bots. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So Lacey,
Oh
myself, this guy
boy.
Joe DiDonato, and the bots are listening to each other too. So they're interacting with one another. They're interacting with the live
Wow.
audience who's asking questions and the moderator who's asking questions. And we're kind of sitting there watching it, and I think where we're going. Um,
Yeah.
if we get past all of the insanity of AI, where we're
Yeah.
going, okay, really could create something that is kind of unique to drive humanity forward.
Well, I got a lot to say, and that's wonderful. And because one of the things from my perspective as a writer is like my job with Medium was to filter out like AI created articles. Because after a time, it's like I predate AI written words, and I've developed my not just predate it,
Oh
but I've
yeah,
developed my ability before that.
I certainly do.
But have been a little bit scared, but my kids, I think, are already kind of naturally developing that. But what I see with AI right now today is when I write something and I'll get my 50 like the 50 bot comments, and I can recognize
Yeah,
when they're bot comments. So the first thing I thought when you were saying this, because that's that rote conditioning. Rote conditioning can be used to maintain something that's already been established. I don't know if you can use it. I don't know if you can use like rote arguments to undo this mechanism. Maybe it's possible. But I think because there's so many arguments that we're getting from like the white supremacy groups. Oh, you're playing the race card, or like just all these things that they say. Oh, just the lies. That person's electable. That person's not electable. Like all these kind of statements that are
yeah,
thinly disguised racism. The bots have been programmed to use those. And so if we had, I mean, would it be helpful if we had good bots that could say, "Hey, actually, what you just said," they scour the internet for those malicious terms and they respond so that every
yeah.
time I write something, I've got instead of 500 comments, I got 1,000, and it's the bad bots and the good bots canceling each other out. How far away from you would that be something that you think would be practical?
Totally, totally. Okay, I mean, we got 5 minutes. If you want to, if actually, if you want to ask Bob a question, do you have a question you might want to ask Bot Bob?
Uh, I actually was playing because you sent me Bob before. I was trying to give me top secret information about how
Ah,
the enrichment process. He wouldn't tell me.
he didn't tell you because he doesn't have my
I don't
integrity.
remember. That's what
He
he
has
said.
my
Yeah.
integrity. Uh, but
Yeah.
why don't you ask Bot Bob what are his uh, key values? Here it goes. You have to wait until he talks.
Okay. Just hold her up and yeah.
Hi, this is Bob. What's on your mind?
All right. What are your key values? Did it go through? What are your key values, Bob? Maybe you have to ask it. I don't think it's picking me up.
No, Bob, this is Walter. Can you tell me what some of your key values are?
Bob.
Oh,
He's on the strike.
no, he's not. Anyway,
Yeah. I
we,
saw
we'll
I
have
yeah.
we'll have to do. Yeah, I know you've been playing with him a little,
Yeah.
but you can actually ask him. Where did you grow
No, it
up?
was
Tell me a little about your childhood. Because he kind of knows all of it based on the autobiography and other things.
I gotta put you in touch. There's this guy from the Together Foundation, and he's also a programmer. And we were having this conversation about we've kind of accepted that the internet has to be toxic and social media has to be toxic because it's been toxic since the inception. And he just openly said, he says, we can write algorithms that emphasize positive
A-
information. And I think
Absolutely.
well, this is where we need to go because up till now, too, our government has not fully accepted how toxic and dangerous the whole social media platforms are. They're not regulated. The ability of platforms like X to manipulate and present false information, everything is being controlled by these things. So, yes, we do need this initiative to elevate decent content because the mediocre content, but also the flatly wrong, the malicious content
Well,
is certain.
nefarious. I mean, because human beings, okay, are gonna go. kind of the lowest common denominator. Okay, in terms of evil bubbles to the top, and if you give them a technology to use, they're going to use it in the most nefarious way possible.
Yeah.
And there's not many examples. I think last week's panel that we did and Bot Bob that we've developed effectively is one of the first. But it's not even out there because people don't really know about it. I mean, I've been kind of pushing it on LinkedIn and other places, but it's such a small footprint of exposure. Yeah, introduce me. I'd love to
Yeah,
chat,
well,
and because I think that's going to be a key element is
yeah.
what are the role models, what are the examples, where do we see something that we can say, yeah, we need more of that and a
Yes.
lot less of this.
And Courtney just made a great comment about we need alternatives to the platforms that currently exist, and this is an ongoing thing. People get, you get algorithmic erosion on a platform like this. I was a rising star, and then I've leveled off here, and
Yeah,
so but that's my whole career as a writer. You get places, and I mean the oligarchs know who the threats are. The people giving good info, they know that they have to control information. It's like in our side, it's like the status quo Democrats. They just they turn over education, they allow these antitrust things to go undone. But do you have access to somebody? I mean, if we just had one platform, do you have somebody that you could appeal to make a platform similar to this one or like Medium, just a different kind of social media platform that emphasizes that has the positive algorithm, actually does good things, and it
yeah.
can be used in concert with this, like just another fact checker. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Totally, and like I said, there's starting to become some examples out there, and so, I certainly have several examples, and it's not even developing a new platform. The platforms now exist; they're just tools, and now how do you use that tool? Like I said, do you use it for nefarious,
Yeah.
things, or do you use it to actually promote something that's good and healthy and actually contributes to the society in a positive way. So now the question is, how do you get the platforms that exist?
Yeah.
Because it's all built on the same technology. Okay. The
Yeah.
question is, how are you going to use that technology? And are you going to use it in a creative way that has a positive impact?
Yes. Courtney mentioned Gander socials in beta. So that's interesting. No algorithm. You notice it, all time based. So you post something and then it goes. But I mean, I would like to see this part of the progressive initiative because I think we're still underestimating, and you're a technology guy. And just like, I don't think, many of the people in our politics understand the extent to which the messaging and the status quo belief system of the American people can be influenced and how it can be changed. I mean, if we could have some legislation, we need a constitutional amendment that ensures that ideas of merit are elevated instead of buried. Because we
Yeah.
currently have ideas of merit getting buried, and we have. I mean, I've been saying it too. Um, people with hundreds hundreds of thousands of email subscribers, but the mainstream publishers won't look at your book manuscript. That just doesn't make sense. They claim to be that they're looking for manuscripts of merit, but they turn down people that clearly have massive followings. They won't even so they're gatekeepers. And it's like this idea of the gatekeepers that are only gatekeeping good ideas that would be for the benefit of humanity, who are protecting a cruel status quo. And then we just need to have those discussions. And I think we're just entering in an era where those discussions are possible. But yeah, the messaging, I'm biased. The messaging has always been my first and foremost thing, but it does meld with technology right now.
Yes, and you can use technology. That's so the technology is not your enemy at this point. Technology
Yeah.
really can be a catalyst to drive. Because you know when it comes to communication, you got to think about all of the younger generations, and I mean they are so steeped in technology. They live on their smartphones. They live on their tablets. How do you now, in fact, give them something else to look at, to interact with, to actually learn from? That's not what's creating a generation that may not be a major contributor to the future of the country.
I was gonna say I've watched my kids too though, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the AI and all that, but I think my kids, they just kind of by evolution, they've got this awareness for stuff that's unreal. I like a song came on the radio and they're like both like AI,
Yeah.
and the concept, the concept of the uncanny valley. I just drew it. There's the uncanny valley,
Yeah.
and it's like this is the thing is how much we like something, how much we like something is this, and how much it looks like a human being.
Yeah.
And so it's like we like something more and more we like something, the more it looks like a human being. But when it gets here to like 80%, we hate it, you know? And then it goes back up. And this is evolution. Because at
Yes.
some point in history, there was something that looked 80% like a human being that used to eat us, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we do have this evolutionary ability to understand the malice of like maliciously deployed AI and tools like that. But you're right. And I always go back to when people hit you with that, we can't be like them argument, and my response is, we use a hammer to build a house. The right uses the hammer to kill somebody. We aren't being like them if we pick up a hammer.
Yeah.
It's like we can still use that tool for good every time. It's just they're making the choice. And then, but we see that impulse right now where people are like, well, Republicans use a hammer to kill people, so we can't touch the hammer. And that's what we have to change. We have to
Well,
pick up that hammer and use it for good.
and I will tell you because this panel that we had last week of bots. Okay, there were in fact three digital twins of actual human beings. So this
Woo.
guy Joe DiDonato, Lacey Lowe, and myself. Okay, but then there was one fictional character, Mark
Wait.
Twain.
Oh boy.
Okay. Joe actually created Mark Twain based on his writings, and all of that
Sure.
got uploaded. Okay. And so, as we kind of went down the panel and, oh, okay, Lacey, tell me a little bit more. And what do you think about this? And then, okay, Mark, maybe you can add a little. And then he'll say, oh, yeah, I just, Lacey is kind of spot on. But, and then it went into a absolute Mark Twain answer. It was fabulous. So the discussion among the bots included um, you know, three individuals who were digital twins of living human beings and a bot of Mark Twain, and you can imagine how he grounded the discussions. And we were talking about AI,
Yeah.
so how he grounded the discussion and brought it, I will kind of
Yeah.
post the link after on my Substack. So if anybody wants
Oh,
to follow or subscribe to me,
yeah.
I'm free subscription. I don't charge for my subscription. If you ever want to spend $10
Yeah.
on a book and go in and just find that. It's on Amazon, or you link to it on my website. Um, but it in fact is a kind of what the future of AI is, if in fact we do something that's good, that's
Yes.
that's that's really focused on being curious,
Yeah.
kind of continuous learning, and doing something where we can actually get the human brain to engage with something that is going to challenge your thinking, or help you kind of move your own thinking forward in a way that is probably not going to be what you're going to find
Yeah.
in most of the social sites and most of the other elements of AI, or what you'll find on your smartphone as you're doom scrolling.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in such a critical moment because it remains kind of a new technology, or it's what are we 20 years into this? And I was just thinking the United States has been a malice is the way it is kind of society,
Yeah.
that assumption, oh, it's just not possible to have a ethical leader. So we have to have the division of powers. It's that kind of a mindset. And I started thinking it's like we need to move to this mindset of just accepting that things don't have to be malicious. There is things like
Exactly.
a mother's love, we can model our society on that. We don't have to just be like, well, I guess it has to be malice, so
Yeah.
let's just resign ourselves to being tortured and oppressed.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, it makes me think of the three rules of robot. As Isaac Asimov's rules of robot. And we
Yes.
can, the laws of robot, or like the robot cannot harm a human being. And we're at that point, right? We need to install the laws of robot so that these tools aren't used maliciously deployed against us, and that we're using
Well,
them for
and again, I could post that as well. My LinkedIn site is different. It's all kind of technology kind of oriented. But if you again kind of get onto my LinkedIn site, we actually have done that. We have the three laws of robotics from Asimov translated now into AI. What are the three laws of AI that
ah,
parallel the three laws of robotics from Asimov? Actually, a guy named Gary Walker and I worked on that, and we have it now kind of on one of my posts on LinkedIn, because my big focus on LinkedIn is all of this AI, agentic AI, and kind of managing AI for the future. But it's there. I'll dig it out and post it to my Substack so that
yes.
the folks who are on this call
Well,
can do that.
that's so important because it really feels like we're at this point where we've just allowed the malicious forces to be completely in control of all the. For some reason, the anti science people are the ones who have managed to use technology and just harness it as a weapon against us,
Yes.
and we just kind of passively allowed them to do that. And I think that's a big point of where activism has to be. We need to have the fair messaging. And it's like, because all my life I've just spent having people say, well, you're just not good enough, Walter. That's why you're not getting these contracts. And that's why it's not. And it comes to find out, it's like, no, I'm not. I'm being deliberately suppressed because I'm saying things like, let's feed kids and let's not bomb schools, and let's have education be free. And so that deliberate censorship is there. And that's what we have to. I'm finally old and ornery enough now where I'm just like, I think I've been lied to my whole life. And I think so that's why it's so important that those of us speak out. So I appreciate you doing the same, Bob.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's tough. I know it's tough.
Yeah. We'll keep validating. So we're over time a little bit, but yeah, like I said, yeah, it goes by fast, doesn't it? I get all my brain gets all
Yeah.
warm. I gotta stop wearing my hat. I got
Every time I chat with you, it's just so great.
oh. Well, I knew you were gonna know the laws of robot too. So that was kind of fun. I'm glad. Oh, and somebody asked you, are you listed as Bob Dana on LinkedIn or Robert Dana?
it should be Bob Danna. Yeah, you may put in Robert Danna, but if you actually you just put Robert Danna or Bob Danna in My Curious Life, it'll go right there. Or Deloitte, because I retired as a managing director out of Deloitte, so it will recognize that as well. There aren't that many Bob Dannas on there, so
Yeah.
if you see Bob Danna and he's got a bunch of AI stuff, or yeah,
Look for a link to
it's
this. Yeah.
yeah, look for a link for that. You'll see it.
Oh, yeah, it's always a pleasure. Yeah, we gotta do this at least once a month, and, I always feel empowered. I was tired, and I feel more energetic now. 2 more calls today for me. I'm talking to Emily Berge a little bit later,
Oh,
and
okay, great. Yeah.
she's running for Congress. She's got a half hour, and we're gonna be talking about how Washington puts its finger on the primaries, and that's gonna be our
Yes.
talk. We need the people of each district to select their leaders, no matter who they say, and I keep telling people, vote your heart, people. Don't listen to who they say is electable. Vote the
Yes.
better candidate. Vote for the who you
Absolutely.
want. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because we'll never move it in the right direction if you're effectively if you're negotiating with yourself. Okay, you
yes.
never negotiate with yourself. Okay,
Yep.
you always go with what you think is the right thing to do. Okay,
Yeah.
and then whatever the outcome is, then you deal with that.
Yeah. And and so many people, yeah, they're just submitting, and that's that other effort. We have to give people permission to just live by their own integrity because what we've seen is the guys that they say is the more electable candidate then goes on to lose, right? So if we're going to lose anyway, we might
Right.
as well lose with the one we want. And then if the one that they tell us to put in does win, then that person doesn't help us. So there's
Right.
no win there. So let's just vote for the people that I keep saying, vote for candidates you trust in a room with your kids. That make that
Yes.
your acid test. So,
That would
oh,
be good. And like I
uh,
said, if you want to go one click further, print out the progressive promise from the Progressive Caucus, and always have that at the ready to say, okay, here it is. What do you think about
Yeah,
any of these elements, and tell me which ones you disagree with, because
yeah.
that will tell you a lot about where they really stand.
And honest people are always willing to answer your questions, and they don't, even if they don't agree with you, they'll at least talk to you. But what they
Yes.
don't do is they don't get mad at you for asking a question, and that I think is that kind of the emphasis of authoritarianism there. "How dare you ask me that? Of course I'm doing the right thing." So, bit by bit. Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Say hi
Yeah.
to Lacey, and yeah, I'll be looking forward to talking with the both of you again, probably within a month or so. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Appreciate
she wants to get on the next call. And she's a gem, and she's worse than me in terms of passionate about about everything.
That's
So
what we need. We need passion right now.
yeah,
So,
well, we got passion. Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate you so much. You on and have a good day today. Try to
You
get some
too.
rest. I'm the one who
And
needs to get
thanks for
rest.
everybody kind of listening in and staying with us for the session. A real pleasure.
Yep.
Thanks.
Love to
Bye.
you. Love to everybody in the chat. And we'll see you the next time around.
Alrighty. Bye bye.